Yeah, hi, Stephen.
Hi
Hey,
there, Angelo.
hello, welcome. Okay, great. So we will get started, and because I like to be quite timely with these things. So thank you guys for joining. All of you pretty much know me already, so I don't need any introduction, but I'm very excited to connect you all to Angelo and Stephen, who have agreed to come in and talk about AI today. In my opinion, they're both geniuses, and I look up to both of them immensely. So we're going to learn a lot today from them. And what we'll do is we will do each of them is going to share over 20 minutes, and then we'll have an open Q&A at the end. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in or jump into the chat and ask a question there, and then I could try to ask for you. So I'm going to start off by introducing my dear friend, mentor, Stephen Ibaraki. He is a globally renowned and recognized AI strategist, tech investor, and futurist. He serves as an advisor to the UN, ITU, and multiple Fortune 500 companies, influencing global policies on AI, cybersecurity, and emerging technologies. As a venture capitalist and board member of numerous AI-driven startups, he has a deep understanding of how AI is shaping industries from finance to healthcare to space exploration. His expertise spans quantum computing, supercomputing, and the evolution of AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. And you built your first computer at 12, correct?
Oh, 10.
10. Okay, 10. Close. We also have with us Angelo Dalli. And yes, he's related to Salvador Dali. He's Italian, if you can't tell by his name. He is a pioneering AI entrepreneur and leading innovator in biotech and advancing computing. With a background in AI-driven drug discovery and computational biology, he has founded multiple successful AI startups focused on accelerating breakthroughs in medicine and life sciences. His expertise spans AI-optimized computing, biotech automation, AI-driven genomics. As an inventor and thought leader, Angelo is at the forefront of revolutionizing healthcare through artificial intelligence. But he's also kind of inadvertently responsible for CRISPR because he figured out how to unwind DNA and created the first paper on that when he was like 20, right? You were like 20 years old or something. That's crazy. I don't even know what I was doing at 20, but I certainly wasn't splicing DNA. Um, so I'm very excited to get started. We're going to actually start with Stephen first. But I know, Stephen, do you want me to start with some questions or would you like to share? Because I know you have a presentation for us.
Yeah, Angelo and I are speaking for about 20 minutes each, and then we have a 10-minute sort of Q&A at the end of each of one of our presentations.
Yeah.
We've timed it for an hour, so we'll probably go over because it's about 8:05 right now.
Okay.
Anybody's willing to stay over, happy to continue after the hour is up.
Make sure to mute yourselves, guys, so that there's no echoes. Okay, so first off, Stephen, tell me a little bit about.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to start a presentation and
Oh
then,
yeah, start your presentation. Let's go. Let's do it.
okay, I'm going to share my screen. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So I want to welcome everyone and thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to talk about approaching the global inflection point. So it's a very futuristic presentation about harnessing the 10th machine age. So I see a double exponential rate of innovation occurring, and that's going to have a profound effect on the entire world and on all humanity, really representing an inflection point with more changes occurring in the next 5 to 10 years than all of past human history. And this is because this convergence between supercomputing, quantum, chip technologies, biomedical innovation, all integrated and accelerated with AI machine learning. Now, throughout my presentation today, I'm going to show you insights from some of the world's top experts that I reached out to so they could share their insights with you. But underlying what I'm sharing with you today are 1 to 3 hour conversations. So I recommend you have a look. So now I'll go to my next slide. So just to illustrate the power of AI, I created an AI avatar that will ask these questions you'll see on the slide here. So these are questions that you need to ask yourself as you prepare for this 10th machine age of this radical inflection point. And this avatar will speak in French and Spanish and then in English. So see if you can follow along with the questions on the slide.
Alors que nous entrons dans une ère exponentielle, où les percées en supercalcul, technologie quantique et IA se rencontrent, vivons-nous dans un monde de paradoxes de jeton profonds? Menez-vous la charge ou suivez-vous simplement le rythme des forces que vous ne pouvez pas contrôler? A medida que la inteligencia general artificial avanza este año y la superinteligencia artificial surge para 2029, ¿cómo ajustarás tus inversiones y estrategias para asegurar que tu organización prospere en un mundo transformado casi de la noche a la mañana? When biomedical computing and AI innovations converge, will your legacy be defined by merely adapting or by rewriting the rules for an entirely new age of business and society? And what are the impacts on your family, on all of culture within your society, and of your children and next generations?
So this is my view of technology adoption over the next few years. So financial services, 160 trillion annually, healthcare, 18 trillion. In the 90th percentile adoption of AI machine learning in the 50s for quantum computing and robots, and similar figures across all top industries. To illustrate further, I produced a video looking at the next 5 years.
I've been thinking a lot about the future lately, and let me tell you, it's both exciting and terrifying. We're standing on the precipice of a technological revolution that's about to change everything we know about business and, well, life in general. In the next few minutes, I'm going to take you on a whirlwind tour of 30 key advancements that are set to reshape our world in just 5 short years. Buckle up, because this is going to be one hell of a ride. Let's talk about AI, shall we? Not just any AI, but artificial general intelligence and eventually artificial superintelligence. But here's the thing. While AI is busy becoming smarter than us, quantum computing is about to make our current supercomputers look like abacuses. We're talking about solving problems in seconds that would take our best computers millennia. It's not just faster cat videos. This is going to revolutionize everything from cryptography to climate modeling. Oh, and it might just break all our current encryption methods. No big deal, right? You know, we'll probably need some quantum-resistant cryptography to combat that whole harvest now, decrypt later problem. Now, you might be wondering, what about us humans? Well, we're not just sitting on the sidelines. Imagine having a brain-machine interface that not only reads your thoughts, but enhances your memory and focus. And let's not forget about our environment. Soon, AI will be seamlessly embedded into everything around us, from hospitals to entire cities. Surgeons will see patient data floating in mid-air, and you'll be able to high-five your colleague on the other side of the world in a fully immersive 3D space. It's not just cool, it's going to revolutionize how we work, learn, and play. Oh, and personalized medicine. AI-driven drug discovery is going to tailor treatments to your specific genome. It's like having a tiny doctor living in your bloodstream. Here's where things get a bit complicated. All this tech isn't just changing how we do things, it's changing who we are. Synthetic biology is going to let us grow meat in labs, create personalized ecosystems, and maybe even compress time in prisons. Yeah, you heard that right. And while we're busy creating new life forms, AI is going to be reshaping geopolitics. Imagine autonomous weapons and AI-augmented militaries. It's not science fiction, it's our very near future. So what does this all mean for us? Well, we're going to have to grapple with some pretty big questions. What does it mean to be human when AI can out-create and out-empathize us? How do we ensure that all this tech aligns with our values? Well, that was a lot to take in, wasn't it? We've just scratched the surface of the next 5 years of business technology. It's a future where supercomputing, quantum leaps, advanced chips, biomedical marvels and AI converge to create a world that's almost unrecognizable from today. The pace of change is going to be faster than anything we've ever experienced. It's thrilling, it's terrifying, and it's absolutely inevitable. The question isn't whether these changes will happen, but how we'll adapt and what kind of world we want to create with them. The future is coming, ready or not. Are you prepared?
So the IEEE is the world's largest and #1 ranked technology engineering organization. And this year they did a study of tech leaders to see what's the most important technology for this year. And in order, it's AI, cloud computing, robotics, extended reality, industrial IoT, quantum tech, and electric vehicles. But look at what they're interested in implementing this year. 37% humanoid robots and 35% quantum computing. Now, these are areas that I recommend you should be tracking. We don't have time to go into detail into these, but just keep these in mind and search for them. This new kind of technology called Con networks, Google Titans. You've seen all of these things with DeepSeek. There's another version coming out. Alibaba Qwen. In fact, all models now producing new agentic deep research. There's Meta open source Llama and something called JEPA, and hybrid models like Mind AI. Ilya Sutskever was the chief scientist for OpenAI, and he's working on a new startup called Safe Superintelligence. He's raising around a 30 billion valuation. And this was released recently. An AI scientist is freely available. It's the first attempt to automate scientific discovery. NVIDIA, a couple of months ago, released their open source Cosmos World Foundation model for robots autonomous vehicles. AGBot World has also launched the open platform with over 1 million examples. And Figure AI, just a few weeks ago, released a new vision language action model called Helix, which generalizes. In other words, it can autonomously do work without being pre-trained.
Yeah.
So how about supercomputers? We're now at exascale. That means we can do a billion operations per second. And if you constrain it to do AI, you can get to 1 trillion billion. And this is the foundation for the Stargate project in the US with a $500 billion investment. Now, the top resource in the world is the SC conference produced by the ACM and IEEE. Quantum computing is going through the roof. You've seen over 300 startups. Recently, Microsoft announcing their new Majorana chip, Google with their new Willow chip, working on a problem, solving it in 5 minutes, would take a classical supercomputer 10 septillion years. That's 10 to the 24 zeros. The top resource here being IEEE Quantum Week. And then processors. There's a new kind of chip called probabilistic processors and thermodynamic computing that has the promise of being 100 million times better than existing semiconductors and chips. Now, the human brain has 100 billion neurons, and I estimate over 250 trillion computational capabilities. Jeff Hinton, who picked up the Nobel Prize in Physics for work in AI, suggesting these things are just better than us. And this past week, Cortical Labs releasing their new invention, combining chip and human brain neurons to solve problems. You see biomedical innovation, Demi Hassabis in December picking up his Nobel Prize with his colleagues in chemistry for showing how amino acids can fold into over 200 million 3D protein structures, including how they interact with RNA, DNA ligands, and now we're looking at the cellular level. This has literally millions of different applications, including in environmental applications, renewable energy, green chemistry, evolutionary history, and clearly in healthcare. A new AI called ESM3 is released, and it allows you to predict the 3D structure of proteins that have never existed. And now they're creating new proteins using this technology, synthesizing it. And what you're doing is condensing 500 millions of evolution using this. Altos Labs is working on reverse aging, and Terasaki Institute is now working on 3D printing of organs. I reached out to Bronson Monsieur for this talk today. He's the director of the Oak Ridge National Laboratories, which has produced the world's first exascale supercomputing, combining this with quantum computing and AI. And when you get to zettascale, I estimate that's equivalent in power to 30 million iPhone 20s. And when you combine this quantum computing and AI, you can solve the impossible.
What are the applications that this thing is really good for?
Right. So as I sort of obliquely referred to earlier, the answer is everything. Biological and environmental research. So that's a lot of climate modeling, regional weather modeling, genomics for biology, molecular biology for things like drug design or understanding plant interactions, basic energy sciences, which really means material science and computational chemistry, with an eye towards developing things like battery materials, catalysts for either things like carbon sequestration or cleanup otherwise, fusion energy sciences. So nuclear physics, so that's a particular interest of mine, and high energy physics, which includes, the understanding of fundamental elementary particles, as well as the understanding of where did the overall structure of the universe come from. We're open to the entire world through one of our big allocation programs called Insight. Yep. We just had a publication from JP Morgan Chase using our quantum computing user program to do an optimization problem. So our facility is completely an open science facility, but the AI period is sort of completely suffuses the workflow for most of what we do. Do you have a large computing problem? One of those outside, right at the edge of the envelope that maybe you can step back a little bit? We would love to discuss it with you.
I also reached out to Jeff Hinton. Just a few weeks ago, he won the top prize in engineering, called the Queen Elizabeth Prize. In December, he picked up the Nobel Prize in Physics. And in 2018, he picked up the ACM Turing Award, which is the Nobel Prize in Computing Science, for his work in AI that underwrites everything we see today. Here's Jeff.
Well, Elon Musk thinks they'll get smarter than us, and they'll keep us around because we make the world more interesting. And I think they'll be so much smarter than us. I think that's like saying, we'll be smarter than cockroaches, but we'll keep them around because they make the world more interesting. Well, cockroaches aren't that interesting. And I think that's how superintelligence may look at us. Digital intelligence, because it can share so much better and therefore learn so much more. That's why GPT-4 can know thousands of times more than any one person, because you're able to share between models running on different pieces of hardware. Because of that, it's going to get much more knowledgeable and much smarter than us. And we should be seriously worried about, can we stay in control? If you went back 10 years and asked people, by 2025, will we have something like this? They'd have said, oh, no, that's going to be 50 years off. I would have said that. So this is happening a lot in AI. Like in 2022, Gary Marcus, I think, said, AI is hitting a wall. It's not going to progress much further. Well, that was dramatically wrong. And we keep getting these dramatically wrong predictions about how neural nets aren't going to go much further without radically new stuff happening. And they just keep doing better and better. I think governments need to regulate companies to use their compute resources to provide their compute resources to safety researchers, so that we can study not only the long-term existential threat that these things might eventually take over, but also all the short-term threats to do with cybercrime and bioterrorism and joblessness. And we need more research on all those things, and discrimination and bias. I'm interested in the issue of do these things have subjective experience? The idea that machines couldn't have emotions seems obvious to most people, and it seems like nonsense to me. So if you're a materialist, you have to believe that machines can be conscious.
I also reached out just a few days ago to Jan LeCun for this talk today, chief scientist of Meta. He also won the Queen Elizabeth Prize, the top prize in engineering, and the ACM Turing Award, the Nobel Prize in Computing Science. And here he talks about this new kind of machine learning he's working on called JEPA, and which can reason, and the value of open source.
So that type of architecture is called Joint Embedding Predictive Architecture, JEPA. And are starting to get some really good success with this. And the next step, which we're also working on, is world model. So what is a world model? It's a system that, learn an abstract representation, maybe a video of the real world, but then has a predictor that, given the state of the world at time t and an action that you imagine taking, predicts the state of the world at time t+1. If you have such a model, then you can do planning, you can do reasoning. All of our reasoning is done with mental models of the world. And that's what we're trying to reproduce with machine. A lot of countries around the world want to use AI for various things. And the only way for them to be able to do this at the moment is to basically fine-tune an open source foundation model. Okay, so in the end, you would have a global foundation model that is a consensus between all of those local models that would be usable open source for everyone and would understand all the world's languages and cultures and value systems.
So how about some resources? I recommend all of these books here. In fact, I've interviewed all of these people. If you want to find out more, let's just look at the first three. Brooke Keifel teaches this to businesses at MIT, put it into a book. Melodona Stevens is a professor teaching both governments and businesses. And then Ready Melody is a serial CXO successfully implementing AI across many companies. Again, putting this experience into a book. We have the ACM. We are the largest and #1 ranked computing science organization in the world today. We have over 50,000 different learning products in our learning center and a daily news feed. For example, a few days ago, we announced our Turing Award winners this year, Andrew and Richard, for their work on reinforcement learning. And earlier, we talked about or announced the UN declaring this year the year of quantum. We have a former relationship with O'Reilly, which is the largest and #1 ranked commercial provider of content for businesses. And all of this is available for a modest fee because we're a nonprofit. And then there's the IEEE. We are the largest and #1 ranked technology engineering organization with over 2,000 conferences and journals. And again, many of this available at very low fee because we're a nonprofit. Sovereign funds are great sources of information. Just a few weeks ago, I was with Patrick. He runs the AI fund. And there's a website with a lot of free content and a journal. Microsoft is an example as a corporation. They have a free program for startups. In fact, any startup can apply and you can get up to $350,000 on non-dilutive grants and credits. And they have a Pegasus program for the under 1%, which is their unicorn builder. And I had a great conference with Sally Ann Frank, who runs the Health and Life Sciences portion. Okay, I want to end with AI for Good. We are definitely the largest sustainable AI solutions program in the world. We're open. In other words, we're open source, basically, so you can freely access all of our content. We have over 100 projects. You just have to sign up to apply. For example, Partners to connect all 8 billion to the internet. You get to connect all schools. Excuse me. The Innovation Factory to work with startups. So here we are with AI for Good. So that ends my presentation portion about approaching the global inflection point. I indicated that we're at a double exponential rate of innovation, more innovation happening in the next 5 or 10 years than all past human history, which will create a radical change for the entire world and all humanity. And this is because of this convergence between supercomputing, quantum, biomedical innovation, chip technologies, all accelerated and integrated with AI machine learning. I call this the 10th machine age, and I gave you examples of each one of these, including resources and insights from some of the world's top experts. I'm now going to stop sharing so we can take a few questions, and then I'll hand off to Angelo.
I'm gonna let the audience ask questions. Do you guys have anything you want to ask Stephen? Daniel, go ahead.
Sorry, I can't be on camera. That was an amazing presentation. My question is, I had a chance to meet with Sam Altman about probably 6 months ago. We had dinner in Atlanta, and we talked about some of the benefits of AI, including the health care systems, climate, different areas that were discussed within your presentation. My question is, as it relates to climate change, as much innovation as we'll see with AI, do you think we'll be able to leverage the technology to be able to reverse some of the effects that we've pretty much just passed the deadline on meeting as a society? But do you think AI will allow us to be equipped to help to catch up with areas that have been massively impacted by climate? That's my question.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's the convergence between supercomputing, quantum, biomedical innovation, chip technologies, all of this are converging. And basically, I would say it's like increasing our intellectual capability like a quadrillion times. I know that seems impossible. And what will happen is it'll unlock all sorts of new applications in renewable energy, addressing climate. You saw Bronson Monsieur talk about that, carbon sequestration and other amazing kind of things, new kind of battery technologies. For example, Microsoft Azure, they have something called quantum elements where they're combining, and it's a cloud service, combining quantum with supercomputing and AI machine learning. And they said, well, let's see if we can create a new battery type. So they apply this technology. They were able to sort through 32 million new novel battery materials. They actually synthesized it, and it works, and it uses 70% less lithium. So all of the areas that are associated with climate or related to climate, unimaginable kinds of technologies will be uncovered because of all of the convergence of these tech. And I'm absolutely certain of this because of all the insights that I gained from all the different groups that I work with. So a great question, by the way.
Yeah, it's a great question. We have another, Alan, do you want to share something?
Sorry, I can't be on camera either. I just wanted to scale back a bit and ask about quantum computing on the qubit level from a hardware perspective versus a software perspective. So what by that I mean the calculations that we've seen in like the last 15 years, there's evidence that on the calculation side through software, it might be more convenient or more efficient than through qubits and quantum computing calculations through hardware. And I was wondering if you have an opinion on if there is a better solution with the calculations going through software versus hardware, and if there's any benefits to one or the other.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is sort of the algorithmic approach to
Yes.
problems versus hardware approach. What's happening is, and you saw Bronson talk about this, they're actually marrying quantum computing with supercomputing. So supercomputing running algorithms with AI machine learning. And really what they're finding, it's really the combination of all three will be to unlock untold capabilities. So you're absolutely correct. Algorithms are continuing to get better, even quantum simulations using algorithms, and that's going to continue. But there's certain kind of problems that are just so complex and so multivariable that you need to be able to work on them in parallel. And that's where quantum computing, and nothing can compare to quantum computing. And that's why there's excitement over the marijuana chip. And in fact, PsiQuantum and marijuana, they won this DARPA utility case challenge. They're the two finalists because DARPA even feels that there's certain kinds of problems that only quantum can solve. So the marijuana chip, for example, has the ability to have 1 million qubits on one chip. And PsiQuantum using photonic technologies are now forecasting they'll have 1 million by 2027. And when you have those kind of hardware capabilities, no algorithm can actually match it. But quantum can't solve every problem. It's only good for kind of nature-based problems. There's other ones that really digital is better, and that's why they're not combining these technologies. So, and again, a great question. I should hand off now to Angelo. So
Yeah, we
my
have
great
to.
friend and colleague here.
Yep. So I think we'll move on to Angelo now because we're a little bit past a half hour. And then if you guys want to stay a little bit, there, I think the guys are willing to stay for a little bit extra to ask or answer a few more questions. So Angelo, without further ado, I think we've properly shared the screen, so you should be able to
I should be able
present
to
your presentation.
share my screen. Let's see if this works. Yeah. Do you see it?
Yeah, I
All
can see.
good. Okay, excellent. So, hi. So I'm Angelo Dalli, and basically I've been applying AI for over 24 years in different industries. And my focus has been on lots of different applications in AI, ranging from genomics, as Adria mentioned, also on then different applications on traffic vehicle applications. I did early versions of like the license plate recognition software. Then I was doing lots of different things in recommendation systems, in supermarkets, in a lot of different things, basically bonusing, commercial applications. And one of the reasons was that I was waiting for the deep learning revolution to come by when we had enough hardware to be able to apply AI in general. So yeah, in my career, I've spent more than 25 years kind of waiting after, you know, like to have AI being mainstream. So I've heard a lot of hype about AI, and you know, I know the future of AI because I'm partially responsible for creating it. So my story has started off as a nerd in the 90s. That's me when I was 16. And when I realized Stephen actually has this fascinating interview with me on IEEE, when we discussed this ability that I have, that if you write an equation, I can visualize it and I can see it in multiple dimensions. And I learned about this when I was 15, and I realized, oh, okay, I have this ability that not everyone has. I thought that everyone could do this. It's like, you know, discovering you're colorblind. And so I took part in the Olympiads in informatics, won a bronze medal back then, and I thought, okay, this is interesting. Let me continue doing more of this. And I was super lucky that I knew this professor, this British professor, had started a degree program in AI in the 90s. And so I ended up doing, you know, my first neural networks in 1996. Back then, trying to do image recognition, remember like Jan LeCun, who you saw in Steve's video, had just invented convolutional networks just a few years back. And back then, you know, implementing something new just a few years after was seen like really rapid adoption. Now it's like if you have not done it in 3 days, it's really rapid. But back then, just being there like a few years after was seen as rapid adoption. And I soon experienced the barriers to data because, you know, there were almost no digital cameras back then. There was a lack of data. And quite frankly, we saw neural networks as being more or less just totally toys. And so they were actually forgotten by a lot of people actually back then and were not seen as the future of AI. And this taught me a lesson that, you know, the flavor of the month may not be the way forward. I had a lot of discussions with Jan on his JEP architecture and on the future of how AI is going to look like. We both agree that it is not actually going to be LLMs, for example. So this is also something that I wanted to now talk to you about, what I see in the future for AI. I think AI at the moment has 3 main blockers to it as currently implemented. One is that we do not know how AI actually works. We don't know how it works internally. It cannot explain itself and the decision-making process that it's doing. And once you don't know how something works, you cannot control it. And in order to control something, you need to understand it fully. It needs to be transparent. And this is basically these three problems of not knowing, of not understanding, not controlling, is preventing AI from being adopted in high stakes applications, which is my current area of focus. How do you implement AI in an application where if you make some kind of erroneous decision, you're going to get high impact in either losing a lot of money or you're going to harm somebody. And this has been, the whole focus. And I also have been thinking a lot, maybe you've heard about, I'm sure you've used DeepSeek and, the debacle of how they managed to actually get advanced AI models at much cheaper rates than is possible. And I liken the cost of advanced AI. Steve mentioned the quadrillion times. I think he's right, actually, because we're on an accelerating slope. And that is a picture of a 1 megabyte hard drive in the 50s, I think. Look at how big it is. And this is something that we couldn't even imagine. I'm sure that those guys at IBM, and I think that was Pan Am, actually, Cargo back then, did not imagine, the iPhone back then. And I think that all these things, which may seem fantastical in Steve's presentation, are actually going to become reality. We just don't know it yet. And this is the problem of exponential growth, that what becomes, like science fiction is actually becoming reality. And when you look at, and one of my hypotheses, which so far has been correct, is that the cost of foundation model training is actually following a similar pattern to how memory and disk prices and storage prices have fallen over the years. We're just basically like in the 90s. So if you look at how much GPT costs for O costs to train, it had 45 terabytes of data and cost around 63 million. Basically, the cost per terabyte was roughly the same as it was in 1993. Fast forward a little bit, DeepSeek. DeepSeek now costs around 6 million to train and had 53 terabytes of data. So now we've kind of went 3 years forward. So we're kind of playing it out a little bit faster. And if you extrapolate this and continue this trend, I think that by 2027, if we'll have around 70 terabytes of training data for foundation models, but this will cost you 125,000, which makes the cost of these foundation models back into the realm of what any kind of medium, large size company can actually afford to do. And if you fast forward it a little bit more, you'll actually get, into the realm of what everyone will be able to actually train. So I do think that these personalized agents that are having like literally the entire internet's worth of data and that are super intelligent, you can actually have your own intelligent agent that will be helping you out and trained with your data and actually personal to you. So I do think that this is going to be a fundamental change in how we consume AI. And, you can take a screenshot of this and keep me to it in 2 years' time, actually. So this is my prediction of it. And, what are the implications of this? How are we actually going to collaborate with AI in the future? How are we going to have practical AI that is usable? And this is a bit of a labyrinth because there are so many choices that can happen, but I have seen a little bit of the future. One is that how do we get AI to deal with uncertainty? How do we actually get real-world understanding? In Steve's video, there was Jan talking about world models. Current AI, for example, if I take a glass and break it, it will magically think that I can put my hand up, and the glass is going to reform back into my hand fully formed, which, even my 2-year-old nephew knows that it's not going to happen. But AI currently does not have that level of understanding that we take for granted, kind of the common sense. And this is a problem in having AI collaborate with us. And also the saying, if you've done statistics, correlation versus causation, correlation is not causation. So understanding the cause and effect. If I move something and I break it, something else is going to happen. This is going to be the consequence. And I think that as we see embodied AI becoming more and more, involved in our everyday life, this is going to become more and more important in AI research. And, the antidote is to basically have a simple yet comprehensive model that can understand the world, that can understand cause and effect, and also that can explain itself. And what do I mean by good explanations? Because if you're talking about explanations, there can be bad explanations and good ones. So I've been spending many years thinking about what are the good qualities of explanations. And you do need to have a comprehensive explanation of something, and it needs to follow a logical chain. If it is C, I may tell you, okay, it's because of A and B leading to C. And also the explanation needs to be hard to vary. If I have new data coming in, I shouldn't need to change my entire explanation. If I have to do that, it means the explanation was a bad one in the first place. For those of you interested in this, there is this philosopher, David Deutsch. He's at Oxford, and a lot of these ideas actually about the hard to vary, he has explored them in detail. And I think he's right, in fact, that this is something that AI should be able to do in order also to reduce hallucinations. And it needs to be plausible and grounded in reality. At the moment, we have this problem that current kind of most modern AI actually does make stuff up. Basically, by the nature of the architecture, it's always going to try to make stuff up. And if we had this world model, if we could actually make it do a reality check, a sanity check, it will obviously return back to the way I was thinking of AI many years ago, which is to have a reliable, intelligent decision maker, an assistant that you can actually rely on. And also, finally, all the AI models that we create in the future need to be able to predict, and yet if you play them the other way around, they should generate. So I think the term generative AI is going to die out, because I think that, prediction and generation, they're, the two sides of the same coin. So I think that we'll be having more terms that are more accurate and more useful than just generative AI. So I've stumbled upon an architecture called neuro-symbolic AI, which is something that has been a holy grail in AI research for over 2 decades, and something that I have solved successfully, and we're calling it hybrid intelligence, and I'm going to talk about it. But first of all, I would like to start off by asking you, what do you think an equation is? Because an equation for me is a compressed model of the world. So one of my favorite examples is E equals mc squared. If you kind of were to uncompress E equals mc squared, you get literally the entire universe. So with 5 characters, I have literally described an object that is almost infinite in size. And this shows you the power of what we call symbolic logic, in which you actually can write an equation, and this can be expanded to enormous amounts of data. And this is something that current AI systems do not actually use. We use it, and I think we use it for a reason, because we can communicate together using symbols, using language, much more efficiently than you can do in other ways, like how neural networks put weights to everything. It's not an efficient way of representing things. And the breakthrough basically is to have neural networks, which is data-driven power, combined with symbolic logic, with rules and reasoning. Effectively, the way I describe it is that neural nets are like the system 1 thinking. If you look at Daniel Kahneman's way of classifying things, the fast thinking, if you want to react fast, use neural nets. If you want to actually understand something, use symbolic logic, which is more the system 2 type of thing, in which you actually have to think things through. And that is done by reasoning. So hybrid intelligence is sort of the mix between these two, and makes it trustable and scalable. And I believe, and a lot of experts are actually coming also to this view, I was just maybe a little bit earlier than most, that this is actually going to be the architecture of AI's future, and not the current one, in fact, that we have. So I want to show you a little bit of how a glimpse of the future. Basically, if you look at a neuro-symbolic AI system, instead of just, having a complicated system of weights that nobody understands, and this is actually something that concerns me. If you were to talk, to OpenAI's team, they actually don't know how ChatGPT works. I mean, the theory is known, everyone knows the architecture, but no one actually knows why it is giving you that particular answer. And this is actually something to be concerned about when you think about it deeply. With near-symbolic AI, you get a clear decision path. There is no ambiguity. You know why a particular system has given you an answer. And the magic is how to actually get the handover between the neural part and the symbolic part. The way I think I explain it simply is that the neural nets are very good at handling uncertainty and unstructured data. When you need certainty, when you have something that is structured, then the symbolic part is literally in a league of its own. Like neural networks cannot compete when it comes to something that is certain and that you need precision on. So what are the symbolic logic strategies that are supported? There are literally just, apart from cause and effect, there are just literally three. One is deduction, which is basically going from the general to specific. So I like to use ducks as making something very complicated and abstract more accessible. So let's say I have a green duck that goes to orange goes to violet, then the implication is that from green I can go to violet. And in that case, I can create new knowledge, and I'm sure of that knowledge. If I start from something that is certain, I know that my conclusion is going to be totally correct. Then induction, which is how most neural networks work. You just see 3 ducks in a row, you say, okay, then the next one is going to be a duck. And this is how GPT works. It's trying to predict the next token. And then there is abduction. If it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And so abduction is mostly how you see things in healthcare, where you have an observation of symptoms, you have a theory of how you can explain those symptoms, and you allocate it back to the cause. And this is the most plausible explanation. So these three together with cause and effect is what's giving AI the new future hybrid intelligence its superpowers. So also there is a different need for a training method. So the current training methods that are used to train LLMs and neural networks are not enough in reality. So one of the main problems, Hinton had worked a lot on this, in fact, when we think about things, we tend to divide and conquer things. So if you're thinking about something, if you're researching something, you tend to kind of divide it into topics and then delve deeper and deeper and deeper. This is why we have folders. This is how we organize things naturally. I added divide, chunk, and conquer because of the psychological principle of chunking, because if we have an AI system that will do this at an extreme scale, but doesn't cater for the fact that as people we can kind of remember around 7 facts in our brain at any time, then it will also be useless, because it needs to be explainable, but it needs to be explainable also to people. So this is why I did the chunking bit, because there needs to be a constraint to make it human friendly. So it is AI with a human friendly way. Literally, the training process needs to consider the limitations of people rather than just machines. And the hard to vary explanation. So, if I have the first explanation and the second one, I obviously prefer the second one, which can be labeled and is simple and difficult to vary. This first one is more suitable for the pub or when having a beer, but it makes for good storytelling, but it's not good for high impact applications. So, and I say it, to a lot of people, like if you're looking at, making up a story, if you're looking to make up a poem, the current LLMs are perfectly good enough. You don't actually need to have the symbolic logic part in it. But if you want to have something where you can, rely upon it to fly a plane, to control something that can, cause disasters or have high impact, then you do actually need to have this certainty with the second one. So, where is this heading for? I think that we're heading towards having AI that can be used in confidence, so that you can literally put people's lives on the line, or you can put large amounts of money on the line in a system that is controlled by AI. Because, when you think about it, this is where we're heading for, and the current AI architectures don't actually allow such confidence. We also need to have certainty, and to be certain, the system itself needs to understand its own limitations. So the nice thing about symbolic logic is that it will tell you, okay, on this part of examples, I know that I'm certain on, but on certain parts of data, I am not actually certain. And this is very important to have. And to be able to explain things in a clear way, not just, if you have a healthcare system, for example, that it can explain it to a doctor in a clear technical way, but if it is explaining it to a patient, that it is explaining it in a way that is suitable for a normal human being to actually understand it. And I think these three are very important to have. So another thing that has cropped up many ways, many times, even including Stephen, I had a panel in Dubai actually, and people were actually saying about how agentic computing is the next big thing in AI. So this is going to impact also agentic computing. So by giving agents the power of introspection, and I'm going to explain this, I hope, in a simple way. So current AI agents, you can see them as an intelligent decision maker. So you have the agent, it has a decision process, then the decision process literally tells the agent, okay, this is how you choose the next best action. Then the agent makes a plan and takes the actions and executes them. And depending upon the feedback that the agent gets, it updates its decision strategy using a process called reinforcement learning. And then you continue the loop. So what happens when you have hybrid intelligence? Basically, the agent becomes smarter, and you also now, apart from the decision process, you also have an explanation. And the explanation process is explaining the decision-making process. It's giving the answer, okay, I am proposing a decision, but this is why I'm actually proposing a decision. And the introspection part is actually natural for humans. It's not natural for AI. But when you think about it, if you make a plan, you're going to actually play it in your head and say, okay, does this make sense? Does this explanation of why I'm doing this make sense? And this is kind of checking out a plan before you actually execute it. I'm calling it introspection because it's a sort of validity check. It evaluates why. And by trying to explain and checking that the course of action makes sense, it's kind of introspecting and validating the plan, whether it makes sense or not. So it's planning and taking the action, but it's also explaining the action. I did this because of this and that. And the feedback then comes with a justification. I've done this, but this is my justification. So if you ask the AI, why did you do that? It's actually going to be able to answer you. And I think this is of critical importance in high impact applications. And the last bit that will change is that apart from updating the decision strategy, since you have symbolic logic and you can represent the world using symbolic logic, it updates the world model. So you have cause and effect learning apart from reinforcement learning. And this, I believe, is how agents are going to evolve in the next year or two maximum. And we will have this introspection being a much more widely talked about thing. So, to conclude, I mean, I was raised, on a diet of sci-fi and Star Trek. So, for me, I always wanted to have something like data and having, an intelligent robot. I no longer believe actually that robots should be made in form of a human. I actually think that they should actually look like machines, just to remind us that they are machines and reduce the confusion. But I think that the principles of having AI for good, of having AI that is beneficial to people, that will, help us, assist us in creating things and not replace us, I think is something that, has been there all along. I think most of the people in AI research do share these values, and, creating AI that is aligned, that is more controllable with our values, and, making it do what we want it to do is important. So that's basically it. Some contacts there also, and yeah, if open for questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Angelo. That was amazing. Do you guys have any questions you want to ask? We still have some time, and they're willing to stay a little bit longer to answer additional questions.
Yeah, I'd love to ask a question of Angelo if I could. Angelo, thanks for this. I think a lot about what AI doesn't do well and what it gets wrong. I think a lot of it is dependent on, it's derived from the probabilistic outcomes that the neural nets give us versus being more deterministic, which you spoke about a bit. What types of elements or changes do you think that the large LLMs and GPTs will need to make going forward to really realize your roadmap in order to become more deterministic in nature?
Effectively, it will need a rewrite of their architecture. So the current LLM architecture just cannot do this. And in fact, Jan LeCun was explaining this very early on of like why the reasons, the technical reasons why. And effectively, the way that LLMs are designed, they always try to make an explanation. There are ways to counter it. So this is why sometimes when you ask an LLM, you get like, oh, I don't know how to answer that. But it's actually very difficult for an LLM to give you that answer that I don't know something. It's always trying to answer you. And this is actually the main problem with the LLM architecture. So effectively, the architecture has to change. It has to change to neurosymbolic. I don't think that JEPA is actually going to be the solution either, because it does not actually give you an exact understanding of what is going on. But definitely the principles will be something that is explainable. I mean, no one really knows exactly what we're gonna have, like in 5 years in the future, to be honest with you. But it needs to be transparent, it needs to be controllable, and you need to understand both as people and the machines of how that system is working, basically. So those are gonna be the fundamental changes that are needed.
Thank you for that question, Chris. Stephen, you're next.
Hi, I'm Steve Singer. I was wondering whether or not, when I look at the AI power platforms, I was listening to a talk where they were comparing it to early stages of electricity, where you have an AC and you have a DC. And right now, AI platforms are built on kind of a DC kind of platform. So you all have, like, to me, power centers that have to be very close to wherever the computing centers are. How do you see that changing in the next 5 years, and how does that impact what AI is going to do?
Oh yeah, very good question. I actually think that AI currently is on an unsustainable path. In fact, it's just taking too much resources to train. And, when you think about another example that I like to use is, for example, with self-driving cars. I'm sure it took you maybe 2 to 4 months to learn how to drive, but it takes a Tesla at least 2,000 years of footage. I think it's actually even more. It could be like between 2,000 to 200,000 by now years of footage. And when you think about it, that's ridiculous to actually have to watch 2,000 years of footage of driving in order to learn how to drive. So, I think that what is going to happen is that we're going to get more algorithmic based efficiencies, where we make systems that are truly intelligent, not just that need a lot of examples to learn, but that can learn from much less examples, that will learn to adapt much quicker, and also be safer to use because you know exactly what they're doing. And I think this is going to open up new categories of applications, especially in embedded AI. So I'm very actually excited to have, robots that actually are intelligent and useful, not just as a toy, but you can actually get real work done by them. And I think this is when society is also going to change as a result, because, this is like the creation of the iPhone that has changed society. I think we are waiting for that iPhone moment. GPT, I think, has been a milestone, but there is going to be that milestone in robotics. So this is how I see it play out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Steve. I think Thomas is next.
Alan, I think also.
Hi, thank you, Adrian. Yes, I had a question on, well, how we're seeing the industry now, because I'm comparing it a bit to the dot-com bubbles and then a lot of the companies that were there before at the start of any innovation, like we had the .com, even in the Industrial Revolution. How do you see maybe the AI going with all this innovation? Maybe one of the companies chooses a different path to go to, and how this innovation might really change. All the companies that we see now might be very different in the next 5 years. Do you see everyone hedging their bets with the technologies being used?
Yeah, I think that the way people do business is going to change. I can speak for my own company. For example, we have started, every developer in my company has 6-hour long sessions with GPT. And we do use actually GPT, not to write code, but to check it. So I don't think that LLM produced code is still good enough for certain things, especially when creating new things. If you're doing, cookie cutter stuff, then it's perfect already. But if you're actually creating new things, it's still not good enough. But it is a very good sidekick. And I think that sidekick has, we've saved like $1 million a month, a year per employee, literally. And that is a huge saving when you think about it. And I think that this is going to be pervasive in a lot of industries. So I think that the way that things are going, we are going to have disruption in a lot of industries, including some that we thought are not possible. So I actually think that in the future, there will be more skills, more, focus placed on skills like communication skills, on dealing with people, on empathy, and also having basic technical knowledge, just because the cutting edge is moving so fast that, literally I wake up every day, I have to, catch up with the world. There's something new all the time. And I do think that maybe this flurry of invention could slow down at some point. As we create more and more things that are useful. And we are kind of, we are kind of at the moment when people were deciding, okay, should we use DC or AC? And in the Industrial Revolution. And I think that period is very instructive, because I feel we kind of are back in those times when people are just inventing things and seeing what's gonna stick. So for me, having general principles to guide us, is more valuable than, specific details, just because we cannot really predict what is going to happen in 5 years' time. Maybe we can predict, but I don't think we can predict with detail.
Yeah, I can provide a perspective here as well. Now that we're in sort of the post time. So definitely, as Angelo indicated, when you see people predicting, let's say 20 years out, you can't. No longer, because of this untold sort of convergence that I mentioned. And it's going to unlock all sorts of different capabilities. But to survive, to be viable, you're going to have to start probing these different technologies that are out there, AI, supercomputing, quantum, things like that. And then think about how you're going to implement these things into your companies if you want to survive. And just to give you a little bit of a picture, back in 2015, I was asked by a group of 100 CEOs representing about 100 trillion in assets under management. They happened to be Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, and things like that. And so at that time, I indicated they had to implement AI machine learning, because I predicted it'll be where it is today. So I was asked to look 10, 15 years out. And I indicated quantum and supercomputing, but biomedical innovation. And you can't sit in narrow silos anymore. So let's say you're in transportation. You can't just think about transportation. You actually have to look interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary as you predict the future, and embrace all of these different modalities that are out there. And that's why I was pointing out to ACM. For example, Angelo is a member of ACM, Association of Computing Machinery, IEEE. He's a member of IEEE, and we produce all sorts of materials. And the cost of membership in ACM is under $100 a year, because we're a nonprofit. So, embrace some of these organizations that are out there, because we're putting up a lot of information to help you prepare for the future. By the way, there's some questions that were asked in chat, so I answered them in chat. There was one on how do we protect ourselves against encryption collapse. NIST has put out algorithms that are quantum safe. or quantum proofs. So, and I posted a link to the NIST site. There's another question about how do we prepare our youth? I actually created a deck to answer that question. So just look at that deck of how do you prepare people for the future. And then I put a link to mine because they have a hybrid model as well. So Angelo's right. Hybrid is probably where it's going to go. And I think neurosymbolic is a great path forward as well. So.
You guys can ask questions to either one of them. We'll stay for a few more minutes, but the guys have a hard stop because Angelo has another call and so do I. But Alan, you were next.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll keep it quick then. Just on the symbiotic relationship between humans and AI, as far as you guys are concerned, where is the limit? Like, because it seems like you believe that there is a very symbiotic relationship between humans and AI, but is there a point where you feel like if we stop, they stop, or they keep going? And then the second question is about some type of Bill of Rights or something like that. Do you believe that there should be something like that for, this conscious kind of AI that might be coming? And if so, do you feel like that should be implemented early or not at all, as far as like a sys check as these things do develop?
I can take that, and then Steve, maybe you want to also provide. Well, I think that, especially for the second bit, I think that, being able to see how things will play out, first of all, there is no such thing as consciousness in AI right now. Like the machines that we have are just nowhere near being conscious. And the illusion that GPT gives you is basically because it manages to mimic the distribution of text on the internet very, very well. And so it gives this illusion that you're talking to a kind of person or, conscious entity, but it's actually not that. I would recommend, I will send a link. Unfortunately, it's very long. Watching Andrei Karpathy's videos on this. Andrei Karpathy was the head of AI at Tesla and also worked with the OpenAI team who created ChatGPT. And he explains it in extreme detail of why this is so. I think that, if we do create sentient conscious AI, eventually it will end up having some rights, possibly like, animals have rights. And I think we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm sure that the political and social system will eventually figure that out. Yeah, that's my take on that.
So on rights, actually, the European Commission started investigating this back in 2016 and 17. They actually proposed a Bill of Rights for AI and really forecasting where we are today. So if you search on the internet, you can see some of that initial work. I'm probably I diverge a little bit from Angelo. I believe that it's not human intelligence and consciousness, but there's some kind of a sentience that is going to be embodied in these things, especially when you put it into robots, because robots need a world view, and that embodiment is then going to give them some kind of capability. Keep in mind that just recently there was a paper announced that even in cells with no neurons, they're finding they can solve problems. They're doing something computational happening at the atomic level, at the molecular level. And there's even people proposing that even within our human brains, there's something happening at the quantum level, right? So I believe that what we think is consciousness is you have to think that there's different forms of it. Octopi, for example, have distributed networks. They shouldn't be able to do what they do, but they do. But their brains are structured differently. Their nervous system structured differently, and things like that. So I believe that even in the nearer term, these things, machine intelligence, are going to be at least equivalent, and then we'll have some kind of more subjective experience, like what Jeffrey Hinton is indicating. So you got these two schools of thought. So we're going to see what happens, but we should, I would say, be on the cautious side and say, you know what, if these things have some kind of consciousness or sentience or subjective experience, it's not human, but it's different, but it's kind of comparable, then we need to sort of plan for that, and including with you know, safeguards and things like that as well. So
Well, hey guys, we went way over, but this was amazing. And I thank you guys so much for taking extra time to answer all of our questions. I did record this session, so I will send it out to all of you. And just also very grateful to Stephen. He's actually a board advisor to my AI startup, Zero AI. And Chris is my co-founder. So if you guys have any questions about AI, want to connect with Angelo or Stephen, please reach out to me. Would love to introduce you to them. And they're wonderful, wonderful people. So thank you guys for your time today.
yeah, and then happy to continue answering questions in WhatsApp. I mean, we're both in the Vine communities and things like
Yes.
that. So,
Yes, thank you so much.
Happy to
Okay,
do
thanks
that.
guys.
everybody.
Bye. Bye
Thank
everyone.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.